Today, we're going to be looking at how some of the reasons why entrepreneurs struggle with staying focused and distraction and get kind of like this squirrely attention span in their creative energies to want to go serve people, help others, but it creates this very expensive learning loop that we find ourselves in. I've had some students recently who asked, it's like, why is it that I keep starting these projects and I keep learning these skills in it? I'm all excited in the beginning, and when I do that, but then I start to understand a little bit more of what it entails, or then I start getting deeper, and then I start slowing down. It almost feels like I'm losing momentum. So then I pull back, and then I go start something else, and then I'm excited again, and then I'm ready to go, and it's just learning all about it is so fun and interesting. And then there comes a point where it's just like, oh, this is kind of difficult, and then they start getting some resistance, and then they start to say, well, and they look for something else, and then they just go back on the cycle of learning, of starting and stopping, and while they're going through this learning loop, it's making it to where it's very difficult for them to actually finish what they start. If this is something that you've experienced or something that you want to understand, why do entrepreneurs do that, then this video is for you. My name is Enoch Leffingwell, and I am passionate about helping entrepreneurs to be able to get their message out to the masses. If you're a speaker, an author, and a coach, then our content is designed to help you to be able to meet master mentors, master skills in half the time, and how you can maximize your learning and understanding so that you could be a better speaker, write the books, and sell the books that God has put upon your heart to get out to the market. And this is what we're going to be sharing. I'm going to share with you this framework of why exactly do we get into these learning loops. This is something I learned in starting my health food business, but this has been extremely eye-opening. I had one of my first millionaire mentor, Dave MacArthur. He was explaining this concept to me, and he was showing me he's made over $5 million, and at the time that sounded like that was a lot of money. And he was showing how this is the process we always go through whenever we're growing. No matter what the goal is, this is what it looks like. So what happens is you start off with you start here with a dream. You have a vision, you have a goal. You see what the future can hold, and then there is this growth gap that starts to happen, and in this growth gap, on the other side of the growth gap is now you 2.0, where now you have this goal, you've accomplished it, you're on the top and you're shining, you're so excited, you're like, yeah, you got the achievement. And while you're here, this is where this is your destination. This is where you want to go. And what's amazing is the destination is exciting. It's like, have you ever planned a trip to Hawaii, or ever planned a trip to maybe go camping or to the beach or something that you don't get to do very often? When you think about going to the trip, it sounds exciting, right? It's fun to dream about it. It's fun to think about it. It's fun to imagine what you're going to do when you're there. And when you haven't been there yet, then it's just like, it's so exciting, just the thought of just going there and exploring and being able, maybe it's connecting with friends, or maybe meeting the locals, or understanding new culture, whatever it is about that destination. I'm going to call this a desirable destination. There's something you desire in it, and it's fun to think about. So what happens is, every time you set a gap from a goal of where you are and where you want to be, this is what I would call like a growth gap. This is what growing looks like. This growth gap is exactly what takes place. So as soon as you start the goal and you start learning about it, you're getting books, you're going through a course, or maybe you're attending a seminar, or you're watching videos or podcasts on YouTube, and you're listening and you're like, this is so cool, I like it. And you're envisioning mostly the destination that you desire. You're envisioning the transformation that you're going to experience and what you're going to have, and that excites you in the beginning. But then what happens is, as you continue, you get to this point that I like to call opposition. And in this opposition, now you start being faced with your identity, these limiting beliefs. Then you have these like, who am I? For instance, if you're wanting to say the destination to be a best-selling author, so you want to write a book. So you start learning about writing a book, and it's fun while you're learning, and then you get to start. You get to the pen on the page, and you start typing up some of your pages, and you go through some chapters like, who am I to be an author, let alone a best-selling author? Or it's like, why would anyone want to read my book? Is people actually going to listen? It's like, I've never written a book before. Am I really an authority on this subject, or is this something that like someone would be interested in buying? It's like, I've read a lot of books on this, but would someone want to buy mine? And then when we come to these limiting beliefs, and a lot of authors or speakers, they'll say that, well, I've got writer's block. I can't write something. And there's some sort of opposition. It's like, here's the thing. You don't have writer's block. There's no such thing as writer's block. What you have is you are focusing on an outcome that you're afraid of, that you don't want. You're afraid that when you publish the book, they won't sell. It won't be a bestseller. You can't do that. So you don't have writer's block. That freaks you out, and it makes you anxious to where nothing's coming. You're not in a creative state. So it feels like writer's block, but really you're just afraid of it failing. And that could be for a new project. That could be for hopping on a sales call. That could be for doing a presentation for others. You don't have stage fright. You're just afraid that you're going to make a mistake. You're going to fail. You're going to mess up. So instead of asking the question, what if I go through all this work and it doesn't work? What if I do all this and it fails? Stop asking lousy questions. Lousy questions is one of the things that creates opposition. Start asking great questions. Instead of saying, what if I write the book and it doesn't sell? Say, how awesome is this going to be when I become a bestseller? How amazing is life going to be when I'm able to impact all the people's lives, and when they start selling, or when people start valuing the books in this like my frameworks, my concepts, my message package in this format? Or how life-changing will it be when my audience, if you're speaking, my audience hears a presentation, they're blessed by it. Then as you start changing that conversation, you start pushing through this opposition, but the opposition always happens. So most people, they don't know that it's their questions that are causing this doubt, perplexity, and these struggles of identity. Like, oh, I'm not a writer. Like for me, see, when I was, one of the things that held me back from writing a best-selling book, I wrote a best-selling book on I Want to Mentor, Now What Do I Do? And it's a #1 on Amazon under business consulting. And this teaches authors, coaches, speakers how to meet master mentors, how to maximize their mentorships, and how to master any skill in half the time. So, but in writing this book, one of the things that prevented me from creating it so often was I had this identity, oh, I'm not a writer. I hate writing. I don't like writing. And throughout school, English was one of my worst classes. And when I think of sitting down and writing things, I'm a speaker, I'm a communicator. I like to talk to people and use my mouth, but using my pen, writing out this stuff, that's so hard. So my identity of editing the book or writing the book, it just seemed like out of all the ways that I could communicate, a book is the last way that I would ever do that. And that was where the opposition came in that hindered me from becoming a best-selling author that I am now. And in like manner for you, when you have a destination you desire, there is, and you start, then the first step that you always go through is opposition. But what most people do, when they hit a little bit of opposition, they're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. They thought it would be a smooth path. So what they do is they start here, and then they go to the opposition, and they're like, oh, that's painful. And then they turn back around, and then they go back to start. They do not pass go. And then they start this learning loop and this cycle that is just going again and again. And they go through this, they start the next thing. And then they hit some opposition. And then they go back to start. And they go back and forth and starting and stopping and starting and stopping constantly. And they get distracted. This is where when you get into the opposition, you're facing some resistance, some friction along your journey, then they start getting distracted with other things. And this is what I'll call here, distraction starts rearing up its ugly head, and it seems so much easier to say start scrolling on, instead of addressing that opposition. It's easier to start scrolling through social media, and now you're caught up into what I like to call unintentional consumption, where you're just consuming videos and books or learning and going for one thing after another, and it's not really intentional, but it's not really connected to your destination that you desire, but it's giving you a feeling of forward progress, because as you're learning new ideas, you're getting dopamine. And that dopamine, like when you learn, novelty is one of the things that our brain uses to create dopamine. And dopamine is a feel-good chemical. Dopamine, if you ever hear people saying like, hey, would you, well, they probably wouldn't. When people refer to drugs, sometimes they call it dope, and they're hooked on dope. That's because dopamine is the addictive chemical in our brain, that when our dopamine receptors are alert and they're receiving this feel-good chemical, it's literally forming addiction. So most entrepreneurs, many entrepreneurs are addicted to distraction, because it's giving the dopamine receptors and it gives you a feeling of forward progress. But then when you're standing there at the beginning and you're just as far, maybe sometimes it feels like you're even further from your destination than when you started, that's when you realize, well, I'm not further towards my business goals. I'm not further towards my life goals. And then they realize that what is going on. So then they go back to learning and they start another vision, another dream, or another skill, or another thing that they want to learn. And they go through this loop again. And as they get caught in this vicious cycle, if they're not being distracted with unintentional learning and unintentional consumption, another thing they get distracted with is unintentional working. And that's just busy work. That's when people are so preoccupied, they get busy working and doing work. They think that activity equals accomplishments, or that activity equals productivity, or activity equals progress. But that's not true. It's only a false perception of progress. And I'd submit to you that it's costing you a fortune when you allow yourself to be so caught up with unintentional working that you fill your plate, your schedule, your life with busy work. It feels like you're making progress because you're constantly busy working, but you're not doing the work that needs to be done, and that is addressing the opposition, the beliefs, addressing the identities, the limitations that are mostly going on in the mind that hold you back from getting to that destination. This busy work, a lot of times we have to come face to face and realize that your busy work could be stealing from your life's work. And there comes a time where you just have to face that opposition and that internal opposition, and realize that this internal opposition, I believe, is not best to suppress, but should be addressed. Opposition should not be suppressed, it should be addressed. Because why is that? I'll tell you. What happens when you start addressing the opposition we have in our beliefs, or maybe we hear some words from our parents. It's like, oh, the parents are like, you're not a very good communicator, you're like me, or like I had one student whose mother told her, there's like, oh, you're just like me, we're not good at communicating. And so you have a hard time explaining yourself. And so whenever she would think about speaking in public, and whenever she has a message, she's a diligent student, she has so much that she could impact people's lives, but when she has that vision to go to let her light shine and to speak before audiences, she's always met with the opposition, where it's like, oh, I'm not good at communicating, I struggle to make sense, people don't understand what I say, and it's difficult for me, I'm not a public speaker. And all of these lie identities start popping up in opposition. But what she did is she started to push through it. Instead of avoiding the opposition and going back into distraction and falling short of her potential, my student decided to push through to the next stage. And when you get to the next stage, this is where we start seeing transformation. Transformation is where you are starting to address the opposition. You are starting to recognize, you're starting to identify, this is a limiting belief that no longer serving me. This is an old belief. I'm going to replace this with a liberating truth. There's two types of beliefs. All beliefs fall into two categories. It's either a limiting belief or it's a liberating truth. And Jesus said in John 8, you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free, and you will be free indeed. So if there's any area in your life that you are not happy with, whether if there's any area where that is broken, that is not free, that you're not experiencing freedom, but it's broken family, broken bank account, broke in body, or broken relationships, in any area that we're not satisfied with, it's because you have not flooded your mind on what the Word of God says on that particular subject. Because when you understand the truth about wealth, then you'll know the truth, and the truth will make you free. You will be financially free. When you understand the truth about health, you will know the truth, and the truth will make you physically free. It will make you spiritually free, whatever the subject is. And I had a heart attack when I was 12 years old. I was 210 pounds, and I was the second fattest kid of an elementary school of about 1,000 students. My body was broken. My body was not functioning. My body was in disease. And it wasn't until I was rushed to the hospital, they took my blood work and they found out that I was high cholesterol, I was high blood pressure, and I was borderline diabetic, and I already knew that I was morbidly obese. But this was awakening. It was awareness that I began to realize, oh no, something needs to change. And what it felt like to me at 12 years old, it felt like I was walking towards a precipice with one foot off, and I was about to take that next step, and my life would never be the same again unless I turned around and I started to make different decisions. And it was scary. Now I realize that type 2 diabetes can be reversed, but at the time I didn't know what to do. So then I started to look for mentorship. I started to look for people who had answers, who had results, who had the destination I desired, which was being healthy. And I started asking questions like, what could I do to help with my situation? And then I was introduced and shared that a plant-based diet is one of the healthiest diets that I could have. I'm like, really? And just learning more about God's 8 laws of health, I started to learn about the truth about health. It was God's plan. Godly trust. O is open air. D is daily exercise. S is sunshine. P is proper rest. L is lots of water. A, always temperate, and nutrition. I learned the truth about these 8 laws of health. I started applying them to my life, and I lost 50 pounds in 3 months. I never put them back on again. Stopped drinking sodas. Haven't touched a soda since I was 12. Stopped eating donuts. And I was able to find physical freedom, to be able to climb mountains without huffing and puffing, and to be able to keep up with my friends on the streets. And no longer was I the fattest kids in class. But why do I say this? Because the transformation is in the truth. It's a truth that transforms. When we start learning the truth about who God says that you are, your biblical identity, then you begin to realize, and you start to overcome the opposition in the mind. You start to see more of who you were called to be, not to who you were told you are. There's a big difference, friends. So what happens is, as you go through this, and then what we do is, when I coach entrepreneurs, I teach my students that we actually have 10 tools of transformation. There's 10 tools that if you just wrap your mind around that, and it's like a tool belt. It's like a toolbox that, depending on the opposition or the lie or the limitation in your life, it doesn't matter what it is. Any transformation could just be solved by 10 tools and start going. We call them 10 tools of transformation that helps people to make that shift and to become the person who's able to reach that destination. And once you go through this transformation, then you start reaching your destination and you accomplish the goal. You gain the skill, you get the results, you're able to have that vacation, or able to reach that financial goal or that physical goal or that marketing goal. And this is literally the growth gap, but this is literally the process that every person goes through 100% of the time. Anytime that there's a gap between where you are and where you want to be, the process to grow through that is right here. It's the same each time. Where a lot of times people think, like, part of the challenge is people think that when they have a goal, that it's just going to be easy, smooth sailing, that it's going to be like, well, if there's no hindrances, then they're like, oh, this is going to be so easy or fun, or sometimes they're listening to a webinar, they're listening to some marketing messages, and sometimes the marketing makes it sound so easy and so fast and so effortless, and so they get these unrealistic expectations, or maybe we place them upon ourselves, and the moment we meet opposition, we're like, we freeze up. We're like, okay, this probably isn't for me, or like, do I have the time? Do I have the ability? Like, am I capable of doing this? And we start going through all these objections, and our mind is like, well, I've never done this before, and we start being frozen by fear, and then we just go back, and we go back, and what happens is we start. This is where some of you may be aware of the shiny object syndrome. And it's this idea that we start something, like entrepreneurs do it all the time with different business models. They start like, I'm gonna have a clothing brand selling t-shirts, or no, I'm gonna sell courses, or now I'm gonna start selling from stages, or now I'm gonna be selling on webinars, or I'm gonna sell on challenges, or now I'm gonna be selling e-commerce, or I'm gonna be selling network marketing, and I'm gonna join another network marketing company, and then a third network marketing company, and then I'm gonna sell about consulting, and then I'm gonna sell. I'm going to do these live events, and then I'm going to sell, what else can I sell? I'm going to be an affiliate marketer. I like that. And then they go through, I'm going to build an agency, or I'll build funnels for people. And they get all of these different objects or ways to be able to make money. And now it's like, oh, real estate's a way. Let me be a real estate investor. Oh, cryptocurrency. Let me go invest in cryptocurrency. And entrepreneurs often chase all these different shiny objects. And then they're testing all these different business models, and it's a distraction. And when instead, if you choose a model and you really start to see that to fruition, you start getting the result, then you will be able to move on to the next model and start building that out. But people get distracted. Some of you are like, well, I don't get distracted with a bunch of different business models. Entrepreneurs do the same thing with their products. And it's so easy to fall into the trap of like building a course. This is what I realized from Brendon Burchard when I was attending the Influencer Summit. Brendon Burchard talks about this, and Russell Brunson talks about it a lot, is that often people will go and they'll create a product. As entrepreneurs, we are super creative. That's what creativity, entrepreneurs are like, serving humanity through their creativity. So we like to create things. We like to innovate and create solutions. So we'll create an offer, create a product, maybe it'll be a course on this particular subject, and by doing that, people take it and they go through the process of creating the course, bringing it out, selling it. They might sell a little bit, and they have some good success. And then when entrepreneurs, it's so fascinating to me, when entrepreneurs find something that works, instead of doing it again and repeating the process, they get bored. And then they move on to something else. They're like, well, what's the next challenge? Or what's the next course? Or what's the next product that I can sell? And they move on to something else before they're even finished with getting that. So what my mentor says, Myron Golden, and it's so gold, is that don't get bored, get paid. When you find something that works, stop getting bored and moving on to the next thing. Get paid. If it works, then get some rinse and repeat results. Continue to do that, because the more that you put that fuel in the fire, you'll have greater transformation financially or impact with your students, and you'll be able to reach destinations that you otherwise would have never gone to. But every time that you start over, it's like you are almost like a startup in a new niche, or a startup in a new area, with every new product, every new subject, every new type of product that you come out with, or every new value ladder that you create, whatever it is. These are it's just getting bored and going back in the cycle. So what I learned, I was listening to a podcast from Russell Brunson, and he's a marketing mentor who's created a business, a software company that's been over $300 million a year annually, and has been evaluated for over $1 billion. So he understands a thing or two about business, But what Russell was sharing was that and it just blew my mind. As entrepreneurs, we are creators. We want to create. We recognize that God is a creator, and God created man in his image. And because God created us in his image, that means the creativity of God he placed in man. He has given us a creativity, not all the same amount of creativity, so that like you have a different portion of creativity than I have a different portion, and together we could accomplish so much more than we could apart. But God created us to create stuff. He made us to make stuff. And I believe that business is God's vehicle that we have been given to be able to create and to solve, to bring heavenly solutions to earthly problems. And as we are creatives, then in this creator economy, what Russell Brunson was saying is instead of creating 12 different products, create a product, a core product, take that product and create that once. Use your creative energies to do that. And then for the rest of your creative energies, start creating marketing hooks. Start creating marketing methods or ways that you can get out that product to other people. And it is so mind-blowing when you can understand this. And this is what I mean by this. Like, let's say you have a funnel in your marketing, and in this funnel, you have you have some. It's a process that goes to, let's say, let's say you have a course, and your course is your core product. Maybe it's $1,000 course. So as you're sending people there, use your creative energies towards this one offer, and as you have this offer, then it's going to allow you to stay focused. Then once you've created it, you still want to create stuff, so what do you do with all that overflowing energy? This is so powerful. Then you use it to now create other traffic sources, where we can have up here, we have speaking, and then speaking on other people's platforms, other people's podcasts, or at live events. That could be a source to bring traffic to your course funnel. Then you have YouTube. If you're going to build on YouTube and get a YouTube brand to be able to send traffic to the funnel. And then you're creating different, instead of 12 different courses, you create 12 different videos or 12 different hooks or 12 different ways to grab attention to that one course. And then you're creating another source you start going into is affiliates, and you start developing an affiliate army to help sell your products. And as you go through that and you start doing these strategic partnerships where other people, a lot of influencers are broke, and if you have an offer, you can say, hey, I have an offer, you have an audience. Why not let me speak to your audience, and I'll present my offer to your audience, and then we'll split 50-50. And a lot of influencers would be absolutely excited to have an offer that converts to be presented to their audience, because many people who figured out how to gather attention, they don't know how to turn that attention into income. They don't know how to monetize their community online. So a lot of influencers are broke. They could have lots and lots of a large audience, but have a small wallet budget because they haven't figured out how to have influence with that audience. So in my last video last week, I talked about how you can make big money with a small audience. If that's something of interest to you on how to monetize your audience and seeing multiple different ways you can do that, then go check out my video on YouTube about how to make big money with a small audience. So what Russell is saying is so profound, is instead of using your limited creative energies on creating so many offers and so many different products, create one product and get that going until and then use the rest of your creative energies in finding creative ways to draw attention to flow through your funnel. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, how about a yes in the chat? So this is where an opportunity where we're able to stay focused on what we are accomplishing. Otherwise, we start and stop patterns. And one of the reasons why I believe that understanding this growth gap is so valuable, the process, no matter what the goal is that you're able to go through, is because when you're not expecting opposition as part of the path to progress, then when you meet it, you're going to be discouraged and you're going to be tempted to fall into distraction. And it's going to cost you a fortune. You're going to fall short of your potential, fall short of the impact you can have, the income that you can have, and the influence that you would otherwise have when you persevere. So there's a phrase that Myron Golden would often say, and he says that what happens is you start and you set the intention, but you know what always follows intention? Disruption always follows intention. So here's the intention, your destination, where you want to go, and here is the disruption. It happens every single time. And if you just know that disruption follows intention every time, then you could expect the unexpected. You could discipline your disappointments because you realize that this unmet expectation or this opposition, it doesn't have to upset you or thwart you or derail you. You just be like, oh, that's part of the process. Now, if you recognize that opposition is part of the process, do you think you could be a little easier on yourself when you're starting or reaching a new goal? Yes. When you're gaining new skills? Absolutely. This is that J curve where people think that it's just going to go up, like growth looks like that. But really, it goes down first with opposition before it goes up. That's what growth actually looks like. And by doing this, it's so powerful. But distraction is the assassination of your destination. You have a destiny, and I believe you're called for greatness. You're called to do great things. But as long as you continue to allow distraction to be in your life, then that distraction is going to be chipping away of your creative energies. That distraction is going to be chipping away of your progress, your productivity, your momentum. You can have momentum or you can have distraction, but you can't have both at the same time. So by eliminating distraction, recognizing the triggers of distraction that can help you to be focused and to be able to reach the goals that you want. And this focus is so essential that every successful person understands that focus is the way to last through the learning curve, to go push through the opposition by understanding how to be transformative. If you need help, like grab a coach, grab a mentor. Almost every powerful, meaningful transformation that I've ever experienced has been in some way connected with a mentor. And as you go through, then you're able to read through focusing on your destination, focus on where you want to go. That's how you start reaching. Because you're willing to do what no one's willing to do, you're able to have what no one's able to have. Because you're willing to do what no one's willing to do, you're able to go to the destinations where rarely anyone's able to go. That's how you start to become the leader in your industry. That's how you start to have real impact and real opportunities in business and life. That's when you start having the things that really matter most to you, is just doing the work that most people are not willing to do. And it's through focusing. Because the law of focus, I also learned this from Dave MacArthur, my first millionaire mentor, and he was saying that the law of focus is really fascinating, because the law of focus says 4 things. Number 1, what you focus on, you find. So what does that look like? When you focus on your opposition, it doesn't mean you're expecting it, but the fact when you start and you get the opposition and you start focusing on your limiting beliefs, you focus on why you can't, you focus on your limitations and lack, then what do you get? What do you find? You find limitation, lack, you find reasons why you can't go forward, reasons why you can't finish that book, reasons why you can't speak before that large audience, reasons why you're not the right person for the job. So what you focus on, you find. And the law of focus also says, what you focus on, you feel. This is really fascinating. What you focus on, you feel, because when you start focusing on opposition and all the obstacles and challenges, then you start feeling challenged. When you focus on your fear, you start feeling fear. And it's not because there's anything that's out of the ordinary about your path or direction. A lot of times we think that that this is a unique problem that we have. Like this, the student that I was speaking to, something that I often say to my students is people think that the problem they're going through is like unique to them. But I ask, like, is this a you problem, or is this a people problem? And a lot of time, like often when my students, as I'm coaching them, they start using terminology that makes it seem like I'm the only one who starts and stops things, or like I don't understand. It's like I just keep getting distracted and it's so difficult. And then it's like there's often a temptation to think that nobody knows what I'm going through, or this is like other people got this figured out because they see the people and the destinations and their accomplishment. They're like, these people are winning and I'm still stuck and struggling. Why does it feel like I'm the only person who's going through this? I'm like, whoa, hold on. Is this a you problem, or is this a people problem? Because 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, there is no temptation taken you, such as is common to man, but God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way of escape that you may be able to bear it. So it says that there is no temptation such as is common to man. There's no problem that exists that is unique to you. Like all of these problems are not a you problem, they're a people problem. And the reason why this growth gap is so clarifying is because this is literally the same problem every human being goes through. In opposition, it's the same temptations every human being goes through whenever they're seeking to close a gap between where they are and where they want to be. And what happens as soon as you close that gap? What do? You set another gap. And there's constantly going to be another gap of where you are and where you want to be, which is good. But we can't put off our happiness to when I get to this destination, then I'll be happy. We have to learn how to enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, because you can actually go through the opposition, through the 10 tools of transformation you're going through, and you can enjoy the process of it, of who you're becoming. That's what is that matters most. But it really has to do with what you focus on. Because if you focus on the opposition and the reasons why you can't, you're going to feel like you can't. But if you focus on like where you are going is far more important than where you are now, and why you started is far more important than where you are. So focus on where you're going. Keep your eyes on, keep your why before your I, because the higher your why, the higher you'll fly. And as you continue to focus on the reasons why you must, you will feel energized, you will feel equipped, you will feel encouraged, and that feeling can help you to get through the opposition. And the third thing about focus is that what you focus on flourishes. The law of focus says what you focus on will flourish. And it's like we're talking about the growth gap. If you want to grow, focus on where you're going. Focus on the reasons to do it. Focus on that. When you focus on reasons, it will grow. Those reasons will grow. Those skills will grow. Focus on and distraction is the enemy of focus. Unintentional, and I'm defining distraction as unintentional consumption, just learning without purpose, endless scrolling, going through all these books and courses and whatever, where you get this feeling of forward progress, but it's really just a lie. It's a learning loop. That's unintentional consumption and unintentional working. It's a bunch of busy work that doesn't really get you to the destination you desire. So most people are only intentional about distraction. I challenge you to be intentional about your destination. Be intentional about what you give attention to, your focus, because what you focus will flourish. Do you want more of your finances to flourish? You have to focus on your finances. When I was a poor missionary, it's amazing how much the finances were restricting me and was finding so challenging, but how reluctant I was to focus on finances, to learn about finances, to understand the financial laws, to overcome the financial opposition that I had, because I had a destination. What's powerful is I had a desire to have resources to get my message out to others, but I had an expectation that was in opposition to my desire. And here's the thing: anytime that when you're expectation is having a tug of war with your desire, who's going to win? When your expectation is at war with your desire, who's going to win? Expectations will win every single time. That war is already solved. If you desire abundance, but you expect lack, you expect failure, you'll often get what you expect. And that's how it is. Where I desired at one point to have the resources to be able to build a team, to pay for a recording studio. Like we have a recording studio right now. Like this is something I had a dream. That was a destination I dreamed of since I first started creating content in 2012. I was 17 in my mother's living room, and I was like recording some YouTube videos, and that was like 10 years ago, and I had a desire. But I remember when I had to save up like 8 months to just buy a simple camera, like $1,000 camera. I saved up 8 months to try to afford that because I had a desire for abundance, but I expected poverty. And one of the greatest perpetuators of poverty is the expectation of poverty. One of the greatest perpetuators of failure is the expectation of failure. Because you expect to not have enough, you expect to not know, you expect to fail, you expect to make the mistake, you expect that you're unable, which is the opposition to your destination, your desire of where you want to be. And what we have to do is learn to harmonize our expectations with our desires. And that's when you start being transformed. When you consistently expect that I'm going to have the resources to go where I'm called to go. And I've done service without money, and I've served people with money, and it is so much easier to serve people with money. And that was once I shifted my expectation, realizing that money is good because money is a vehicle to serve people. And so I'm showing you that literally it doesn't matter what the objective is. This is the growth gap that everybody goes through. And the law of focus is so important because what you focus on, you find. What you focus on, you feel. What you focus on flourishes. And this focus is what, by focusing on where you want to go, it's going to grow, it's going to develop, it's going to improve. And another reason why this is so important is because there's a concept I really liked. I read in the book, The Key Person of Influence, and it's so true. In the Key Person of Influence book by Daniel Priestley, highly recommend it. If you haven't read it, go check it out. It's talking about how to become the go-to leader in your industry. What are the 5 P's for positioning yourself as an authority or a credible source on your field or in your topic? And a lot of business is less about your product and how good your solution is. That you can have the best product in the world, but if you don't know how to position that product, you don't know how to market your product, nobody will know. You can have the greatest message in the world, but if you don't know how to position that message in a way that people see value, then you won't get that message out to the masses. So this whole book is about positioning and becoming a key person of influence, because a lot of success is about perception. A lot of attracting opportunity is about perception. And in this book, he talks about these 3 types of people, which in this book, he talked about in any industry, there are, number 1, there's beginners. These are the beginners who are just getting started, and they don't, they barely get any opportunities in any fields. Opportunities, whether you're a copywriter, whether you are a relationship coach, whether you are a health coach, whether you're a financial marketer. If you're beginning, then it's really hard to thrive. It's really hard to get through. There's a lot of opposition that you got to go through. Whenever you start and you're beginning anything, you've got more opposition than you have opportunities. That's just a fact of life. So you don't want to stay a beginner in whatever industry or field, topic that you choose to become a expert or key person of influence in. The second is where you have the busy workers, the busy bees. And these busy workers they're constantly busy. So they're flooding their time with what I'm calling unintentional working. And they're constantly working on stuff, but they're never really getting ahead. They're filling their schedule with activity, but they're not filling it with productivity. And so what happens is they get so caught up in the busyness, and they could be in an industry for 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, and they're never getting ahead. They're doing the same things because they're constantly distracted with unintentional working. And they're never really focusing on that opposition, the transformation, and becoming the key person of influence. So because of that, they also don't get opportunities. It's incredible how a disproportionate number of opportunities are given to the third class of people. And in this third class is what the book calls the KPIs, which is the key person of influence, which is the name of the book. The key person of influence, the go-to leader in any industry. When you have the key people of influence, this is when you learn how to get into the inner circle of your industry, learn how to be amongst some of the master mentors of whatever that subject is, or whatever the industry or the topic or the category that you've chosen for your field of study or field of service and contribution. The KPIs, the key person of influence, those are the ones that opportunities flow to. A lot of times, what's amazing is like 80% of the opportunities are going to only 20% of the most key people of influence in any category. And it's those who are in the inner circle who are like as I join masterminds and inner circles, and I'm joining high-level fellowships with entrepreneurs and attending the events, it's like those who are going to the events, those who are going to the masterminds, who are in the circle where I'm able to, like, multiple times a year be in a room with the mentors of mentors, people who are mentoring others. Sometimes I'm speaking on people's podcasts, and as I'm speaking on their podcasts, then we find out it's like, oh, your mentor is my peer. These are the people that we're masterminding together in inner circles, where you're able to create opportunities, you're able to create strategic partnerships, you're able to find what's working. So the key, one of the destinations I would submit to everybody to become, is a key person of influence. But in doing that, you're going to be met with opposition. The key is not to go into distraction, persevere to transformation. But here's the thing, it takes time to be the key person of influence. And the truth is, there's already knowledge or skills or abilities you already have that could easily position you to be a key person of influence. But it's just by learning the process and finding the right mentor to help you with that transformation. And so what I'm saying is, if the problem with giving up or getting distracted at opposition phase is that what it does is every time you go back to start, you become a beginner again. And what do we learn about the beginners? The beginners don't get opportunities. The beginners are the ones who are struggling to get by. The beginners are the ones who aren't known, who aren't paid, who aren't highly desired. So the real destination, the real desire is to start, go through the observation, do the transformation. Why? Because very few entrepreneurs are willing to go through this process to a point where they'll be the key person of influence. But when you decide that I can, I will, and I must, then you're able to get there and stay there, and then you'll take the lion's share of the opportunities by learning how to focus. And with this, I'll just close with this with this word of encouragement, because with every new level, there's a new devil, and when you realize that is the process, this is the growth gap, the way to close that gap every time, then a question that my students often ask is like, how do I know if what I'm doing is actually working, if it's time to persevere, or if it's a time to pivot or to change? And I don't want to go into distraction, but I don't want to. I don't want to be. How do I know that what I have chosen, what I've focused on, is the right thing for me to be focusing on right now? I'm willing to focus. I just want to have the certainty that what I'm choosing to focus on is the way to go. I'll just put it this way: King Solomon is the richest and wealthiest person in human history, and I've built my entire business model after the business model of King Solomon. And he understood a thing or two about business. And what he says in the book of Proverbs 14:23, he says, "In all labor there is profit." In all labor there's profit. What does that mean? That means that all work works. There is no such thing as work that doesn't work. When you are lasting through the learning curve, you might feel like, well, what if I do all this and it doesn't work? It's impossible for that work to not work, because there's two types of work. When you're working, when the work that you're doing is not working for you, that means that it's working on you. And what you have to do is you have to allow that work to continue to work on you long enough until that work will eventually start to work for you. And you'll get the results, and whether that's the finances, the friends, the team, or the influence, or land that big speaking engagement, whatever it is. And there's no such thing as work that doesn't work. All work is work. All work works. It's impossible for you to fail. And as you understand Proverbs 14:23, in all labor there is profit. It means there's no work that you can do without a paycheck. But it pays you in the transformation you receive of becoming the person, gaining the skills, learning the experience, gaining the relationships. Now that you've got paid a fortune that you're now able to use to make your fortune. Or it's the work that it works for you. But the thing is, when the work works for you and you close that gap, that's not when you can be happy. That's not, like, you might get excited after an accomplishment for maybe 30 seconds, 3 minutes, 3 months. Like, rarely is it very long, because as soon as you close that gap and the work works for you, you create another gap. And now again, you have this gap. So the problem with procrastinating your joy, your fulfillment, your happiness to some arbitrary destination is that destination moves. It's a moving target. So it's like a mirage that you're stranded in a desert and you see a figment of an oasis and water, and you start walking towards it, you're going towards it, but it never comes. It's just a facade. It's just an illusion. So, but learn instead to be happy today. Have joy in the moments. Learn to enjoy the process. When I go through this opposition, it's painful, it's hard, but now that I expect it, it can be more enjoyable. And I realize that all work works. When it's not working for me, that means it's working on me. And become the person who works, who values more the transformation than even the destination. Because the transformation is, or like learning the high income skills or becoming the person, is a thing that's able to get you to any destination. So who you become is more important than what you receive at the end of the goal. There's two journeys of every goal, the journey of transformation and the journey of achievement. And when you understand that you're being transformed, and that is a payoff, that is a powerful paycheck that you're receiving, then you could really start to enjoy the process of focus. You can start to eliminate distractions. Stop beating yourself up when you hit opposition. Just recognize that's part of the process, and you'll be able to continue going. Because there's a big difference between the wealthy, the middle class, and the poor. And the huge difference is what they work for. Because the poor, the poor class, they work for skills. They work for a salary. They trade their time for money, and they're struggling to get financially ahead because their reason for working is for their salary. They're excited to get paid and to go pay their bills. So it's not really like they're earning money, they're just transferring money from their employer over to their bill collectors. So the poor are constantly in this loop of financial struggle and distraction because the poor, they work for a salary. Now the middle class, they work for stuff. they often will make money so they can build good credit, and then they go and they buy stuff, whether they are going to buy the new boats that they can afford, or the car that they want to keep up with their neighbors. They buy a new house. They buy the stuff with these income, these liabilities, these income reducing liabilities. And the middle class think the purpose of money is to make money so they can get good credit and buy the stuff. Whereas the wealthy work for something totally different. Wealthy work for skills. They are working so the work can work on them. They know that if they acquire the high income skills, then success is inevitable. There's nothing that they can't accomplish, because the value of their work, whether they make lots of money or little money on a particular project, is less important than who they become in the process, the skills that they acquire. Because the powerful thing about high income skills is when you learn skills, there's no government that could take it from you. No divorce can strip your skills away. No economic downturn can take away your skills. When you learn high income skills, you can be you recession proof your finances. You recession proof your business. You recession proof your family. You're creating a fortress around your family by learning the skills that can't be taken away from you. And as you're working, know that the work is working on you, and you're being transformed, become the person to gain the skills that skill can help to get you to the destination again and again and again. The goal is not to get to a point in life where there are no gaps. The goal is to become a person who is continually closing those gaps. And when you go from one gap to another and you're closing them, that is how you're being transformed more and more into the person who can do the things so you can have the result that you desire most. And so what I wanted to talk about today is why distraction is costing you a fortune, and what causes distraction, what that actually looks like, and what can we do instead of being distracted by shiny objects, by learning loops, by constantly creating a bunch of new offers, and what we can do to address that distraction, and how the value of working is in gaining the skills and becoming. So if you're interested in learning more about subjects like this, then and how to acquire new skills, I want to encourage you to grab a copy of my latest book, the best-selling book, I Want to Mentor, Now What Do I Do? You can go to iwanttomentorbook.com. This book is going to teach, if you're an author, a coach, a speaker, or other high-level entrepreneur, this is going to show you how you can meet master mentors, the best of the best, how you could maximize those mentorships. People are investing in coaching programs and masterminds, and attending seminars, or attending these events, or getting into the inner circles, and they get there and they're like, now what do I do? How do I maximize this experience? How do I network with the people to build strategic partnerships? How am I able to work in a way that creates wealth for both parties and win-wins? This is covered in my book. And then finally, it's going to teach you how to master any skill in half the time. Because learning, although this is the process for learning new skills and reaching new goals, it doesn't have to take long. When you learn the strategies that are taught in my book, I could show you how to close these gaps so much faster. How when you understand the patterns, then you'll be able to be a person who closes the gap faster than your peers, faster than others. That will help you to get to the key person of influence a lot faster than what others who don't have the principles in the book. So if this sounds of interest to you, just go to iwanttomentorbook.com and you can grab a copy today. It's easy read, and I look forward to seeing you in there. Thank you so much for watching this. If you thought this was a blessing, I encourage you to go share it with other people. And remember that God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Great, so let's close